Hello everyone and welcome to Who is Best, a show where I, Claudine, take games that give you choices and rate those choices in a tier list. Today we will be going back to the golden age of the 90s and inspect the worldwide phenomenon that is Pokemon. Specifically, we will be rating the final forms of all 151 original Pokemon in blue, red, and yellow version. Well, not really yellow version, but the list mostly applies to it, so I'll just throw it in here as well. Now, this took almost 3 weeks of research. I am by no means a Pokemon expert. I can only imagine the amount of hate I'll see in the comments by Ultra fans and meta addicts. But I do want you to know that I took every forum, YouTube video, and website I could find to come up with this placement. Now let's talk about how placement works. The original Pokemon games were a programmer's nightmare. Some stats didn't work, some worked better than originally planned. 2 examples of broken stats are the speed stat, which is tied with critical rates. The other is the special attack and special defense stats, which for some reason are combined, making Pokemon like Slowpoke and Alakazam absolutely broken. Some Pokemon types were great on paper, but lacked any attacks of their typing. And some Pokemon were just poorly implemented, like Rapidash, who's a physical-based Pokemon, but whose move pool is completely special-based. Moves like Wrap, Sleep Powder, Hypnosis, Body Slam, Amnesia, Reflect, and Hyper Beam completely unbalance the game. In the end, this is the basic rule. Pokemon typing, move pool, TM capabilities, stats, manipulation of the game's broken coding, and all-around usefulness were all considered when putting together this list. I will not be diving deep into any one Pokemon since we have so many to cover. In fact, some I'll just be saying the placement and move on. And if all that wasn't enough, I have a surprise at the end of the video, so stick around till then. Now with all that out of the way, let's get started with the tier. First is Ditto. The little failed experiment of Mew is the absolute worst Pokemon in the game. It's so bad that challenges have been built around it entirely. Next is Golbat, Butterfree, Beedrill, and Parasect. Golbat can get some decent moves, but his stats are horrible. Bug Pokemon are without a doubt the worst typing in the game, and Butterfree, Beedrill, and Parasect are useless towards endgame. Next is the low tier. There are 23 Pokemon in this category, so let's get started. We have Arbok, Onix, and Rapidash. As I said in my opening, Rapidash is the outcome of poor programming more than a bad Pokemon. Next is the HM slave Farfetch'd, Muck, and Marowak. Marowak is held back by poor speed and attack, but does have the unique skill Boomerang, which is okay. Then we have Electrode, Fearow, and Flareon. Electrode is insanely fast, but has no other stat to go with this, making him not useful at all. Flareon is the worst Eevee evolution. Her attack stat is complemented with a horrible move pool. Next we have Seaking, Seadra, Wigglytuff, Hitmonchan, and Hitmonlee. Hitmonchan is worse than Hitmonlee because of his dependence on special attack moves with a horrible special stat. Hitmonlee is a decent Pokemon with pretty good stats and a move pool, but his typing and horrible defense don't do him any favors. Then we have Pidgeot, Lickitung, Magmar, and Venomoth. The final 3 on the low tier are Scyther, Tangela, and Porygon. Scyther is great when you first catch him and pretty much gets worse from there. Tangela has a heavy reliance on status effect moves with not many heavy hitting moves that can take out other opponents. And finally, Porygon's poor stats keep him and his versatility from reaching the mid tier. Speaking of the mid tier, we're going to break this up into both a lower and upper tier. Let's move on to the 17 Pokemon of the lower mid tier. First up are Vileplume, Machamp, and Vaporeon. Vaporeon is definitely viable with a good typing and decent special attack and speed stat. Then we have Pinsir, Poliwrath, Magneton, and Raticate. Pinsir is by far the best bug type. He has a high attack stat, but an utterly horrible move pool. Poliwrath is a viable choice, and Raticate is extremely versatile. Next up is Aerodactyl, Kabutops, Ninetales, Golduck, and Omnisar. Aerodactyl has an interesting typing and decent stats, but an abysmal move pool. Fire types like Ninetales get a raw deal because of how their type was treated in 1st gen. Finally, we have Charizard, Electabuzz, Sandslash, and Raichu. Charizard is the worst starter for late game. In Yellow version, he can learn Fly, which helps a little. Raichu is fast and has access to Thunderbolt, which makes him a viable damage dealer, but he is outpaced by other evolutions, which we'll get to in a little bit. Moving on. Now we've moved into the upper mid-tier. Every Pokemon from here on is viable in late game for one reason or another. There are 21 Pokemon in total, so let's get moving. We have Blastoise, Dewgong, Tentacruel, Kingler, and Kangaskhan. It could be argued that Blastoise is the best starter in the game. Dewgong is one of the best water types out there when it comes to move pool. Tentacruel is an underrated Pokemon who has many uses. Kingler has the highest attack stat in the game, and Kangaskhan is pretty versatile. Then we have Mr. Mime, Dugtrio, Dodrio, Gyarados, and Hypno. We finally make it into some Psychic Pokemon. This is by far the most broken type in the game, and you can't go wrong with Pokemon like Mr. Mime or Hypno. Dodrio is one of the best non-legendary bird types in the game. Next is Clefable, who is a TM eating machine, Lapras, and Jinx. Lapras and Jinx both can learn some useful TMs, and teaching Jinx Psychic is needed for her to be in this tier. After that, we have Nidoking, Nidoqueen, Cloyster, Venusaur, Victreebel, and Exeggutor. The Nido pair are probably the most versatile bunch of the lot. Cloyster is a tanky Pokemon that can deal out some major damage, and Venusaur, Victreebel, and Exeggutor compete for best and Venusaur, Victreebel, and Exeggutor compete for best grass type in the game. The final three for the upper mid-tier are Arcanine, Persian, and Moltres. Persian's abuse of the high speed, high crit stat puts her all the way here at the top, while Arcanine is just a beast. Moltres, despite its insane stats, is bogged down by poor typing and move pool. Now we've gotten to the cream of the crop. Holy crap, this is a big list. But it's finally time for the top tier. These 13 Pokemon are the best in the game. First up is Golem. Golem is similar to Rhydon, but lacks some of the ultra important moves he has, specifically Horn Drill. Articuno is the second best legendary bird and beats a lot of the top tier in stats, but also shares a lot of type weaknesses and vulnerabilities. STARMIE isn't just the resident Pokemon of the babe that is Misty, it's also a water type god that has one of the best move pools in the game. Slowbro was hard to place. I struggled with moving him higher on the list, but ultimately settled here. His speed is meh, but he has access to Amnesia, which simply breaks the game. Next is the only dragon type of the game, Dragonite. If he had access to powerful dragon type moves, he might be at the top. But ultimately, he is the best tank in the game because of his resistances to many types in the game. Gengar, the only ghost type Pokemon, is similar to Dragonite in the fact that his typing isn't really explored in Gen 1, but that doesn't bog him down in the least. He has amazing stats and typing, but suffers from an absolutely horrible move pool. Next is Tauros. Tauros is a super balanced normal type Pokemon with immense speed and defense. He has access to some of the best moves in the game and is probably a top tier candidate for any competitive team. Then there's Rhydon. This rock type decimates anyone in its path. You can exploit Drillhorn for insane damage, and his physical wall abilities make him almost impossible to kill. Next is Jolteon, the best of the evolutions. Jolteon abuses the speed stat to become one of the best sweepers in the game. Thunderbolt and Double Kick can decimate almost anyone in his path. Chansey is as unique as she is powerful. She has the highest HP stat in the game and the ability to learn the most important TMs in the game as well. Also, because both special defense and special attack are combined in Gen 1, and she has high stats in both areas, she becomes Rhydon's opposite. Chansey is a must-have for any competitive team. Finally, we have the last and best legendary bird in the game. Zapdos rivals Jolteon, but edges him out just slightly with his high stats. Next, we have the universally most competitive Pokemon in the series, Snorlax. Snorlax is a beast. He destroys the competition, and given Body Slam, Hyper Beam, and Amnesia, can decimate everything in his path. The final member of the top tier is the one and only Alakazam. Psychic type, high speed resulting in high crit chance, and access to the best moves in the game make this one of the best Pokemon in the game. The God Tier. The God Tier shouldn't surprise anyone. First up, we have Mew. Mew is the best all-around Pokemon in the game. High stats in every category and the ability to learn any TM put him at the tip top. Well, except for one. The final Pokemon is Mewtwo. Mewtwo is Alakazam on steroids. Nothing can beat him. Period. Now, I know you have all been waiting for this, and I'm sorry, but it's horrible. So, without further ado, I give you our tier list cut from the original anime's Poke Rap. And buckle up, because it's a ride.
Who's that Pokemon? It's cool pet, Butterfree, Beatrice, Parasect, Arbok, Onyx, Rapidash, Weezing, Starfish, Muck, Merlin, Primeape, Electro, Hero, Flurry, Easy, King, Seedra, Wigglytuff, Hitmonchan, Hitmonlee, Pidgeot, Pikachu, Magmar, Venomoth, Psyduck, Tinkerlord, Porygon, Firepool, Machamp, Vaporeon, Pinsir, Poliwag, Raticate, Magneton, Full Arrow, Dactyl, Boo, Cups, Ninetales, Golduck, and Omastar, Charizard, Electabuzz, Sandslash, Raichu, Blastoise, Dewgong, Tentacruel, Kingler, Kangaskhan, Mr. Mime, Trio, Gyarados, Hypno, Clefable, Lapras, Jynx, Zero K2, Nidoqueen, Cluster, Venusaur, Dixie-Belle, Executor, Arcanine, Persian, Bulltracer, Golem, Articuno, STARMIE, Slow, Dragonite, Gengar, Tauros, Random, Jolteon, Chessie, Pokemon, Togekiss, Snorlax, Alakazam, Mewtwo, Twitter. どうですかね? 死にたい.
And that's my list. I love Pokemon and tried hard to give this list the respect it deserves. I'm looking into doing Silver and Gold next. Let me know who your favorite Pokemon from the first generation are in the comments below. Also, like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you all later.